magic carpet ride continues. This ball club has been amazing all season long.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the show. Episode number 35, Swinging for the Fences. Steve Silver along with Brian Epker, who is currently trying to figure out his camera. There it is.
I think I got it figured out.
Yeah, I hope everybody is doing well this afternoon. Last week we took a 4th of July hiatus. I don't know about you, Captain, but I was quite busy over the 4th of July. Nonetheless, man, we're back. Quick note, real quick though, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button. Hit that bastard as much as you possibly can, so we can get the algorithm. I don't know how it works. Something to do with algorithms, Captain. But all I know is if you hit the like button, good things will happen.
You're an algorithm guy, though, aren't you? When it comes to baseball, so you got to get on it for your podcast here. Figure out what those algorithms are.
Well, first of all, like I've never even complained. I had never even ever admitted to knowing anything about computers. Like, yeah, you want to talk advanced metrics, we can talk about advanced. You know, it's funny. It's like my mind works like in compartmental areas, right? Like when it comes to like 90s like pop culture, I think I'm your guy. But when it comes to like figuring out how computers work, you might as well say banana because I have no fucking clue.
No, I hear you. I know that one of the, all these TikTokers and these YouTubers, they got it down to a science, and they might seem like idiots when they're filming their stuff, but they do have the algorithms figured out so that they can nail it and get the big bang for their buck.
No, I get it, man. The courses back in the 90s and early 2000s during school, where I was supposed to be paying attention to computers, it just I was too busy playing baseball, man.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, all right. So let's get into it, Captain. The Mariners are currently 4-2 in their last 6, which is the good news. They following that up one of the worst stretches of the season, where I think they went 6-12. I think they got outscored by 17 runs during that losing streak. And I got to be honest with you, it wasn't pretty. But that being said, they did get some starting pitching performances outside of the fact they couldn't hit a fastball. But good news, man. They go to San Diego, they get everything fixed. Julio Rodriguez looks good. He goes 7 for 14, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 2 doubles, 5 runs scored. And the one thing that I've been praying over the course of the last month, that he would get his pull side power back. It looks like he's got it.
Yeah, and with Julio, I think it's just a matter of time before he starts to perform to the capabilities. But he went 0 for 4 the other day. The thing about his 0 for 4 is that his strikeouts weren't the chasing type. He went 0 for 4 with 4 Ks, and his strikeouts were not chasing, which, if you're looking for a silver lining, that's it, because that's one thing he's been doing since his rookie season. He's always off balance, and he chases pitches. Those are his 2 Achilles heels when it comes to his plate approach.
Sure. Oh, 100%. Like, I don't even give a shit if he hits the ball hard on the ground, right? As long as the contact is solid, I'm willing to live with it, because eventually that will drop in. Those will turn into base hits. It's like when he's, for whatever reason, trying to go the other way, which we saw a little bit early in the season, where he, for whatever reason, he was trying to dink singles into right field. And it's like, dude, your main areas on the inside half of the plate, getting the bat head out and putting absolute thunder into a baseball.
Yeah. Yep. No doubt about it. But yeah, it's good to see him to start to emerge. I think the closer we get to the All-Star break, the reality sets into him like, man, I was there. I was the king of the All-Star break. I was, even though I didn't win the home run competition, I really did win. And now I'm not even going to be sniffed there. Everyone's going to forget about me. So maybe that's got him fueled up.
I hope so. By the way, speaking of All-Stars, congratulations to Logan Gilbert, who punches his first All-Star ticket. And by the way, deserving, number 1. But number 2, I'm thankfully they didn't try to shoehorn Julio into the All-Star game. And last year, I don't know how you felt. I didn't think he was deserving last year, but the game was in Seattle, so you had to have that 1 star mixed in. But congratulations to Logan Gilbert.
Yeah, no, much deserved, and Then he goes out after being notified that he was an all-star and then has an all-star performance. So, I mean, you love to see that. The other guy that should be there, in my opinion, is Cal Raleigh. I mean,
you think?
Yeah. Cal Raleigh's the MVP. I mean, I know he had a stretch where he wasn't hitting that great, but I mean, the dude is clutch. He's throwing out the most base runners in baseball. I mean, he's good. He's that good. He's an all-star.
Speaking of Cal Raleigh, he went 7 for 24, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and a stolen base. That's actually kind of accomplishment that the big dumper is spiking bags. But
dude, he's got two or three on the season now.
I know, dude. We're gonna go a 10-10 season. I'll just say this, like doing this show. You have a nice little, when I chart from week to week, the cool part is you can kind of see trends, and there was a while there where Cal Raleigh was not doing anything, but it seems over the course of the last 2 weeks, he started to kind of pull out of it a little bit. Garver started to pull out of it a little bit, and I don't know how you feel, but like over the last couple days, maybe Polanco kind of feels a little.
Yeah, well, I mean, Polanco's, I guess for a lack of a better term, he's on the hot seat, right? I mean, trade deadline's coming up, moves are going to be made, and Polanco's hasn't lived up to the billing that the Mariners expected him to produce at. But yeah, in the last couple 3 games, he's starting to maybe look like he's got something.
Well, 3 games doesn't make a season, but
no.
I'll say this for the amount of hype that came into the season. When you look at the splits, it looks like he's the second half performer. But that being said, Cap, when it comes to this entire offense, from 2021 through last year, the core of this group really has been second half performers. Right? You look at what happened in 2021, 2022, 2023, bad starts, and then all of a sudden, come July, all of a sudden they catch fire. That's why I was never really worried about this start. Because quite frankly, I just kind of looked at the calendar and I'm like, well, July. We're about to hit July.
Yeah, no. What's up with us here in Seattle, where it's the second half? I mean, the Seahawks, they were a second half team for damn near a decade. The Mariners have been a second half team, and a lot of people will say, well, yeah, it's cold here in April and May and early June, and there's the fog layer, the marine layer, and this and that. I'm just like, nah, man, something in spring training is not right, in my opinion, when you can't come out and have a fast start. Now, this year it didn't matter because they were winning and the rest of the division was losing, so they were able to get some space, but now that space is narrowed.
Yeah, and I also like that, though. I like the fact that Houston's nipping at their heels because this has been a position that they have not been in since 2003. Okay, so I like that because if these guys are legit ball players, they know that, and they know what they're going to have to do to get out of whatever funk that they're in, right? You would expect that from a group that's been around now for 3-4 years.
And the defending World Series champion might be the hottest team in baseball over the last 7 games.
Yeah, I think they're I think they've won 7 out of the last 10. They've been playing well. But I want to get into this because I don't know if you've been paying attention over the course of the last 3-4 weeks. There's a lot of fans who are starting to think that the Mariners probably should be sellers at the deadline. In first place, mind you. In first place, mind you. Because of the lack of faith if they bring somebody in that they're just not going to perform. Right? So based on this weird context that the Mariners would rather sell instead of trading some of their prospects that they overvalue, by the way. And just go ahead and wave the white flag.
I don't know what kind of bullshit chat rooms or blogs you've been on, man. But that's
it's Mariners Facebook, Mariners Twitter.
I'm not on any of those. I'm in the real world where I have conversations with people face to face. I haven't heard a single person say that. So maybe I need to go in there and get some laughs because that's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, 100%. But the idea that, number one, a lot of people live with recency bias, right? They just look exactly what's going on right now. The sky is falling, and they forget that the Mariners started 4-8 in the first 12 of the season. They forget the fact that they were able to bank a 10-game lead in the division. And they just assume that because we're having this downwards trend, that all of a sudden the season is over in June, that there's no hope for the rest of the season. And oh, by the way, Laz Montez is going to be Yordan Alvarez in 2028. So let's not trade him, because we're not worried about 2024. We're worried about 2020.
Yeah, let's break this down with some common sense, just to maybe give some fairness to these idiots out there that think that. What if you're a Mariner fan and you think that they should be sellers? What are you trying to accomplish, and who are you selling?
Right.
I mean,
I would probably assume Garver, Polanco, France. You know what I mean? Andres Munoz. Anything of value. Go ahead and just blow it up. And, you're just assuming that Jerry DiPoto and Scott Service would survive, right? Waving the white flag on the first place team. Imagine that actually happens, right? You're a president of baseball operation, and you're ordering your GM and your on-field manager to wave the white flag. Fuck it, we're done.
Well, that's never going to happen. You might be able to make the argument that the Mariners aren't going to make a good move at the trade deadline. They're not going to go out and get any superstar like they should. But there's no way in hell that this team is waving the right flag when they're sitting top of the division, first place, and in a good position at a minimum to make a wild card into the playoffs.
Well, here's why I think it's bullshit. Because number one, these fans aren't watching the Modesto Nuts. They're not watching the Everett Aqua Sox, the Arkansas Travelers, the They have no idea how good or bad these prospects are. They don't watch them. Somebody tells them that they might be good. So all of a sudden it's like, ooh, we got this little present in single A fucking Modesto.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, it's like number one, they could be Yordan Alvarez, but they also could be Evan White.
You're right.
The rate of success on prospects is very low. You have more flame outs. You have more flame outs than you actually have success.
And your top prospect, arguably Celestine, is what, like 19, 20 years old? I mean, you don't know what he's going to be.
He's in the developmental league.
You don't know what he's going to I mean, he could end up being the greatest player ever to play the game.
Sure.
But it's highly doubtful that that's going to be the case. He could end up being terrible. You just don't know. You don't know how he's going to develop, mature, what happens when he gets to the bigs. I mean, it's a whole different world.
Correct. But also, I get the impression that the reason why they want to do this is because they want Scott Service fired. They want Jerry DiPoto fired. And so by waving the white flag, that's just like the easy way for John Stanton to say, you know what, we're done.
Listen, if you want to make the argument, if someone wants to make the argument that they want Scott Service fired, I'm not going to stand in the way of that. I don't know if I agree with that or not. But if you're going to try to say that you want Jerry DiPoto fired, why? The guy has built up the minor league system from absolute garbage into one of the best minor league systems in all of baseball. He's taken what he's been given by management money-wise and done the absolute best he can. He's always wheeling, dealing. He's got great relationships all around baseball, in the AL and the NL. He can work with just about any team in making trades, and he's always trying to craft a trade. What more do you want from DiPoto that he can do that he's not doing, where his hands aren't tied?
Well, to play devil's advocate, a lot of fans will point to the fact that one playoff appearance in 9 years, and of course not doing enough under the payroll restrictions that he's been dealing with. And when it comes to Scott Service, it's like I do believe that there is a length of time where that message stops resonating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's been here the exact same time. Eventually they had to move on from Lou Piniella because of, whether or not he was resonating with his clubhouse anymore. But I'll just say this. this deadline right here is the most important deadline we've had in at least 5 years. When you think of what happened last season, what Dipoto didn't do in the offseason leading into 2023, the massive failure at the deadline, and then, of course, not making the playoffs the year after they made it, they come into this season with massive expectations, and they're in first place. They don't have contracts for 2025. If they do nothing, they're done. That's it. Like, that's why I think not only will they make splashes, they're going to make big splashes because they need a division and potentially a long playoff run if they're going to get up the next couple of years.
Yeah, well, I mean, the question is then, who do you bring in? Because if you're going to talk about getting rid of guys, you can't do that without talking about who you're going to replace them with and why they're going to be better. Now, you brought up a great point. Over time, maybe the message, the style, everything else starts to fade away a little bit with your players. You know, you get in that rut and that same old thing, and maybe that's what Scott Service has gone through. I would agree. If someone said, hey, Scott Service was let go, I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't be like, oh man, like I was still upset that Pete Carroll got fired from the Seahawks. I wanted him to have one more year, one more go around the horn to show what he had built up. Now, whether that would have proved successful or not, I don't know, but I think he deserved it. He earned it. He built up a bunch of equity, and that, to me, they could have done that for him. Scott Service wouldn't bother me. But what would bother me is if they just bring in some, you know, unless they brought in Dusty Baker, I would really be wondering where are they going to go with this team.
Right. Well, I'll say this, right? Because the offensive issues of 2024 are not just mutually exclusive to 2024. Basically, since this whole run started in 2021, the high strikeout issues, the low contact issues, the over-reliance on the home run ball, you know, like you're basically feast or famine. The king of the 1-1 wins. It's the inconsistency on offense that I think has rubbed me the wrong way to this point. Now, I certainly think that in the context of 2024, he probably should not even be close to being let go. But that being said, I can understand how that would happen. But that being said, is this a manager issue or is this a philosophy issue? You know what I mean? Like, what is it that's not connecting with guys who can clearly play baseball?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And you know, I think you'd have to be around the team and probably have to have been around them during spring training to really understand whether it's a philosophy issue or not. From the outside looking in, I would say, hey, there's a few things to point to the fact that maybe it could be, especially when you talk about them getting off to slow starts, about them being inconsistent on offense for quite some time. I mean, this isn't a season or two. This is 5 or 6 seasons, right?
Correct. Right. It's just what rubs me the wrong way is like at the major league level, everybody can hit a fastball. Okay, it's true. If you can't hit a fastball, you're not going to be playing Major League Baseball.
Right.
And this team cannot hit the fastball. This isn't just a Julio issue or a JP issue or a Polanco, Cal Raleigh, Mitch Garver. It seems like the entire lineup has trouble hitting center fastballs, cutters that are a little bit up in the zone that you used to see Ty France rip for doubles or Julio hitting into the bullpen in left field. This season, for whatever reason, they're slow to the draw, and it's mind-numbing, right? Like we talk about the reason why Julio got off to a terrible start or why he's not in the All-Star game. You can point to it. They fired their hitting coach. They fired the coach or their offensive coordinator, whoever, like Brent, or whoever they were calling them. And yet these consistent patterns continue to happen. And at the very end, there has to be a level of accountability. And maybe that's something that I don't like Scott Service about, is because it's whether or not he's willing to hold a guy like Julio accountable, Cal Raleigh, JP Crop, and sit him for a couple of days and be like, dude, this is just not going to happen. This can't continue.
Well, I mean, he did move Julio down to 7th in the lineup, and that's a pretty big blow for a major league quote superstar, right? I mean, that's kind of an embarrassment. So that's almost worse than holding a guy out, because when a guy sits out, you can say, "Oh, I'm just giving him some rest," right? He just needs some rest. But when you move a guy down, you're saying, "Dude, you're sucking. You get down there with the garbage players and work your way back up."
And, ironically, it's been the bottom of the lineup over the course of the last year.
That's
actually been producing. But
let me ask you about that. Do you think it's just because they've been able to produce on their merits, or is it because when a pitcher sees that bottom of the lineup coming, they I don't know. I don't want to say don't give their full effort, but maybe they're not as focused as they would be when they're facing your top 5-6 guys?
I would probably say, because you're facing the likes of Josh Rojas, Dylan Moore. You know what I mean?
God, I like those guys though. Those are two guys that you want on your baseball team if you're a playoff team.
100%. But when you're dealing with JP or Cal Raleigh or Mitch Garver, guys that have the potential to hit the ball in the ball
that are dangerous, can be dangerous. Yeah,
you're not thinking about Dylan Moore or Dom Canzone or Josh Rojas taking you deep, but these guys have been aggressive. They've been aggressive early in counts, and all of a sudden there's a double, there's a single.
Yeah, and you're not talking the back half of the lineup like the Indians or the Padres, where you got hitters from 1 to 9.
You will. You hope that's the case after July 30th.
God, but they need more than one guy, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
I mean, you're going to have to blow a lot of your currency, which is totally fine with me. But if they only go out and get one guy, I'm going to be almost as disappointed as if they didn't go get anybody that was of note. Yeah. And this guy has to be a proven commodity, a star. This can't be Mitch Garver, right? It just can't be.
No, realistically, you replaced Mitch Haniger, and it saddens me to say because I'm the biggest Mitch Haniger fan in the world. But right field, you have a hole. Dom Canzone cannot be playing regular days. And if you want to move Raley to left field and get a first baseman, that's fine. Or if you want to keep Raley at first, then you need another corner outfielder.
Yeah,
you might even think about upgrading third base and moving Josh Rojas to a super sub type of guy. I wouldn't argue with that, but you're absolutely right. Like if it was, here's what I want. Now I'm going to preface by saying the Mariners can trade the top prospects in their organization and still be fine.
Yeah,
they would be 100%. The rumor is now that Houston is being linked to Pete Alonso of the Mets. I want the Mariners to sneak in and take Pete Alonso from the Astros.
Yeah, Pete Alonso. I
don't care if he's a rental.
No, I don't care either. Listen, it doesn't matter. We're playing for this season, and some people would say, "Well, that's awful short-sighted." Listen, we've been in this just scourge of garbage baseball for 40 years minus a few years, right? So we have to play for the season, especially when you have the starting rotation that you have. They have had an incredible run so far in this first half. This might be the best you ever see this rotation. You never know what's in store next year. So you can't bank on next year. You got to bank on this year. And I agree with you. I don't care if it's a rental player. And by the way, if the team is good and they go to the World Series and this rental player enjoys playing with the team, then you've got a better shot at signing them than any other team out there if you can offer them a few bucks.
Correct. But I want to address this fallacy. This is one of the biggest lies that are being told. The idea that if the Mariners do that, they're going to be selling off their farm. And yet you forget that the Mariners have rebuilt their farm system twice in the last 4 years after they graduated all those guys to the major leagues to replenish the farm system. And if they sell away their top 6 prospects, they have another 4 years to draft and free agent international signings.
Exactly.
What are the two things the Mariners do incredibly well? They draft, and they're very good with international free agent signings.
Yep. And, I mean, think about Kyle Lewis. There's a guy that nobody wanted to trade, Kyle Lewis, because he was looking like a star. He was rookie of the year. He was off to a great start. And then, boom, his career's shot. And what's he done since? I mean, that's why I'm saying I agree with you 100%. You just don't know. Go get a proven commodity. Go get 2 proven commodities and get this thing into the playoffs and make a legit run at the World Series.
Right. Like if you told me on August 1st that we walked away with Pete Alonso, Jazz Chisholm, Nico Horner, and Drew Smiley. Former Mariner Drew Smiley.
Yeah. Nah, I can't do Drew
here's-
Smiley.
let-
You can't
let me-
come to
let
my
me-
franchise and not pitch a goddamn inning and then expect me to want you back and you took my money. No, I don't care. I don't care if you're the best pitcher now ever seen in baseball. You're not coming to my team. Fuck
My
you.
reasoning is simple. That's funny. Fuck you. Fuck you, Drew Smiley.
I hate Drew Smiley.
My reasoning is because Drew Smiley this year is actually having a very good year.
I know he is. Fuck him.
Now he's in the bullpen and he can make spot starts. But my reasoning is simple. Because Brian Wu cannot stay healthy.
God. Yeah.
And it's like and we're only talking about the fifth guy in the rotation, right? Where if Wu is healthy, you can move him to the bullpen. His stuff translates, and you can keep him healthy down the stretch into 2025, where you can pick up a guy like Nico Horner. You can dump off some salary. Jorge Polanco, Mitch Haniger to the Cubs. You can bring in Nico Horner. You can pick up a nice swing guy in Drew Smiley.
Fine. If Drew Smiley comes to Seattle, then he's got to pay a cover charge. Give me some of that. Give me some of that money back that you stole from us. God, that's what I'm on the athlete side when it comes to guaranteed contracts. Always have been, including in football, and I was glad to see that the NFL went that way. But there's got to be some sort of balance. Like if you don't ever play for the team and you collect that entire salary, there's got to be a better way to do it that helps the team recoup some of that money.
Well, if you hate Drew Smiley, I wonder what your feeling is on James Paxton.
Oh, well, hey, James Paxton at least did some good things for this team. He actually did some things. Drew Smiley didn't do a fucking thing ever once.
Well, the second time around for James Paxton, I think he had one start and that was it.
Dude, he had an eagle land on his shoulder. That's good enough for me.
Well, you know what?
I mean, that's all I need is a moment like that, and that's something. That's more than Drew Smiley did.
Yeah. It gets back to the main point though, is that you're absolutely right. They cannot afford to waste 2024. And I'll take it another step. That if they do a nickel and dime deadline, where you're bringing in Mark Canha, or you're bringing in Michael Conforto, guys who can help you, but they're not the type of guys that you need in the middle of your lineup. Not only will this team not win the division, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be tough if they don't do the right thing. They might be able to hang on for a wild card, but. Yeah. Well, that's not what we're trying to do here, right? As fans, that's not what we're trying to see. We're not trying to, like Jay Buhner said, let's just win the whole thing. And that's what we're in position to do and have been since the onset of the season. So let's take this thing box to wire and make it happen.
Absolutely. Obviously it starts with the inner core. Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, JP Crawford. Those guys have to play better. And I think I've been preaching to the choir when it comes to those three. But that being said, though, this is like there is like a perfect mixture of something special brewing with the 2024 team. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's different from the prior years. Even that great 2022 season. Leading into the 2022 and even at the deadline. To me, it just feels like we're on the cusp of something special, and you got to ride that momentum into the deadline.
I don't know that I agree, or I don't know that I have the same feeling, because I felt like 2022 was special.
That was 100%.
And not just getting into the playoffs, but just the way they were winning ball games throughout the year, the camaraderie, that the way they got along as teammates. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they don't get along or they don't have a bond this year. To me, that just felt different. And I feel like last year really put a kind of a damper on things. And I think guys like Cal Raleigh that were saying publicly, hey, we just need to go get better players. I think it kind of changed the strength between the bond between players a little bit, because the guys at the bottom of that list that were part of that magical season are like, hey man, why you got a dog on me? You know, I'm out there, I'm busting my ass. I was part of the winning team, and now you're saying basically go replace me with other players. It's not wrong, but when you say that to the media as a player, you're damaging other players' reputations or feelings. So I think that I'm not going to say drove a wedge in there, but I think it gave a moment for pause for some of the players on the team.
It could be. But that being said, though, it's like these guys want to win. Cal Raleigh,
and I'm in full agreement, and I don't dislike what Cal did. What I'm saying is you got to get rid of those players that had their feelings hurt, or you're going to have a fractured locker room slightly.
For sure. That's why Jared Kelnick is playing in Atlanta.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll just say this: like the great part about 2022 was everything just looked right.
Yeah.
But they barely just squeaked into the playoffs. The idea isn't just to squeak into the playoffs. The idea is to win the division by yardage. You know what I mean? It's like I agree. Now, they squeaked into the playoffs, but then they run the Blue Jays in Toronto. And now they didn't win a game against the Astros, I don't think, right? They didn't win a game in that series, but every single game was a battle. Like, it was a great game, and the Mariners were, right there the whole time. So, to me, that had the feeling of momentum. I'm not feeling momentum right now. Now, it's early still. It's before the All-Star break, so that momentum usually gathers in the second half, and it very well could happen. And I hope you're right. Your gut feeling might be a little bit ahead of mine. You might have a sense of it better than I do right now, and it's all going to come to fruition, especially when they add a couple players. Well, the reason why I feel that way is just look at the upcoming schedule. I mean, they start today. They start today with 4 in Anaheim, and then they go into the All-Star break. They come out with 3 against Houston in Seattle, 3 against the Angels in Seattle, 3 against the White Sox in Chicago, and then 3 against the Red Sox in Boston to close out the month of July. This is a soft schedule. Like this team can reel off 14 wins going into the deadline.
They could, but we've also seen them flounder against teams that they had no business floundering against so far. So I mean,
yes, it is true. It is true. I can't argue with the fact that they play down to competition. We saw it against the Nationals earlier this year. We saw it against the Marlins. It's true.
But
and they barely got past the White Sox in Seattle.
But baseball, as you know, as well as anybody, is about the ebbs and flows. You're going to hit the skids. Just about every single team in baseball is going to hit the skids at some point in time. And maybe that was their skids, that little run of losing to teams they should have been beating.
Right, exactly right. And you're absolutely it's like the stock market, baby. The Nasdaq doesn't stay up every day.
Right.
So, right. And so, but that being said, the 2024 Mariners have taken advantage of their schedule after a skid. The last East Coast trip between Baltimore, New York, and Washington. They came back and then they swept the Astros, they swept the Angels, they swept the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I look at this and I'm like, okay, cool. So the bad part's out of the way. You know what I mean, the schedule, the month of July is perfect. The month of August, outside of the Dodgers, they play 3 in LA. That schedule looks wide open. And by the way, for the core of this team, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, JP, they have their best months in August.
That's true. Hey, speaking of the Dodgers, any part of you, and I was on this side when it happened. Any part of you wishing that the Mariners would have signed Teoscar for that money?
Not for the qualifying offer of 20. If you are telling me that we can get him back on like a 2-year deal at 15, I know it's $5 million, But Teoscar didn't have the greatest year last year.
He didn't, but he was in that transition. He goes to LA, and I know he's surrounded by great players, but I mean, he seems to be killing it. He seems to be clutch. I don't know. He seems like the kind of guy that when he's on is exactly what you need in the lineup.
I looked at it when we got him. My first initial reaction was, how is he going to hit at T-Mobile? Because he was in an ultra hitters park at Skydome, surrounded by Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette.
True.
And Matt Chapman. And then he comes to Seattle, which does play tricks on the hitter's eye for whatever reason. I think that's bullshit, but for whatever reason, he didn't perform last year with no protection. And then he goes to LA in a hitter's ballpark, batting right behind Shohei Ohtani.
Well, okay, and I agree. And that's 100% valid. So why not keep Teoscar and then double down and go get somebody else to put in the lineup for that protection? That's what winning ball clubs do.
I get it. And you know what? But you know what? After coming off that season with 200 plus strikeouts, if it was like on a 2-year, $15 million a season, I would have done it. I would have done it. $20 million for a dude coming off a 220 strikeout season.
Yeah. No, I mean,
by the way, and he doesn't play great. He doesn't play great defense either.
No, he doesn't. That's a valid point.
If you're asking me which one that I would take, 2023 Teoscar Hernandez or 2024 Mitch Haniger, I'm taking Teoscar.
Yeah. Because that's basically what it came down to.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think Mitch is making 15 this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when the Mariners play the Dodgers to see how all that interaction goes.
By the way, how do you feel about Jared Kelenic?
Well,
he's kind of having a season in Atlanta, man.
And I think we knew that he would. Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, sometimes you need a change of scenery. Not that he wasn't doing good things here in Seattle. It's just he was also doing enough bad things to offset the good things to where it was just flatlined. I feel like if the players liked him, if he was a player favorite in the clubhouse, he would still be here. So that tells me that there's some other stuff behind the scenes that we've kind of heard rumblings of, but nobody's ever come out and said, yeah, this guy was an asshole and we hated him. But let me tell you, he was a good enough player to where if you're Rodriguez or your big dumper and you go to Dipoto or Service and go, dude, we got to have this guy on our team. He's on the team.
Right. He's on the team. I think his blonde hair pissed a lot of people off. So no, honestly, I think it was his maturity.
Yeah.
I heard rumblings that he would throw temper tantrums in the clubhouse. So it is what it is, but I'll say this.
Hey, it's got to be hard on the dude. Here you're the name brand of the Mariners farm system, right? You're all anybody's talking about. And then Julio, bam, hey, look at me. I'm a star in the major leagues. Right. And you're still sitting down there at AAA doing nothing. Yeah. And then you come up here and you suck for a while and it's real rough and you have to get sent down. And, hey, I'm Julio and I'm still the king and everybody loves me. That's had to have been a hard ride for an immature guy.
Dude. Oh, dude, that must have been a bruise to the ego. That dude got butthurt big time.
Yeah.
I'll just say this, right? It always begs me the question of, wait a second. So he failed here, but then as soon as he leaves Seattle, all of a sudden he has a career year. And it's not just Jared Kelenic. It's also Teoscar Hernandez. So what about the Mariners hitting philosophy that holds hitters back, where all of a sudden players leave and it's unlocked?
Yeah, well, remember Kelenic got off to a great start on the road last year, right? He had like 7 home runs, or in 3 games or something ridiculous. I mean,
his month of April was crazy.
It could definitely be a philosophy issue. Those 2 examples would point to that. Or it could be Kelenic goes to Atlanta, and it's like when you get a new girlfriend, and she knows that your past girlfriend would treat you bad and wouldn't cook for you and didn't like to go fishing or anything that you like to do. And they're like, hey, I love fishing. I want to cook for you. What else can I do? You're a great person. You're an awesome guy. I love you. That's what the Braves did for Kelenic, right? They rejuvenated his confidence. They reinstilled and reinforced the fact that he was wanted there, that they wanted him and needed him. And I think that probably gave him a boost in confidence and rejuvenated his love of the game.
Yeah. It's interesting that he couldn't get a confidence boost in Seattle. You know what I mean? Like it's like I wonder if the bad times just kind of stick around, right? You know what I mean? Where it has a player second guessing.
Might. I mean, if you don't like a guy, you don't like a guy. And as professional as you want to try to be, it's still going to show in certain things. And so if Kelenic realized that guys didn't like him, or that the manager didn't like him, or that management didn't like him, and then you go and you kick a Gatorade bucket and you put your team in a worse position and you can't do anything right. Every turn you make is a wrong turn. At some point in time, you're done.
Absolutely. All right. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're on the YouTube, go ahead and hit the like buttons. Don't think about it. Just do it. 100%.
Just like when you click those buttons on your cell phone contracts and everything else. Don't read it. Just click it.
Yeah, just click it. So I want to get back to you because we were supposed to do a series of whether or not any of the 2024 Mariners could crack the great 2001 lineup. Okay? As we know, 2001 was a historic season. Korean was all around. So I'm going to give you my starting rotation.
Okay. All right.
In the first spot, it's Julio. It's Luis Castillo versus Freddie Garcia. And I'm taking Freddie Garcia.
Yeah, I'm taking Freddie.
Yeah. I don't think Luis Castillo is an ace at all.
Yeah, he shows flashes, but he's I'm about ready to sneeze. Thank you. Now, if he doesn't give up a home run in the first inning, I'm almost shocked with Luis Castillo, right? Now, Freddie Garcia might be the most underrated pitcher in Mariners history. Like when you talk about the great pitchers of Seattle, Freddie Garcia's name never comes up, but that dude was a workhouse. He was solid.
It's like because everybody just says, okay, well, Felix Hernandez, Randy Johnson, Mark Langston, fair. Okay, but people forget Freddie Garcia. That dude was a horse.
Yeah, he was.
And he was at the top of a rotation that had Aaron Seeley and Jamie Moyer.
Yeah,
right. Two guys who probably could have filled that role. There was like Lou Piniella was onto something with Freddie Garcia. That dude was a horse. And by the way, he goes out and wins a world championship in 2005 with Chicago.
I know. Good for him.
All right. My second one was George Kirby versus Aaron Seeley. I'm taking George Kirby.
Yeah. Love Aaron Seeley. Love Aaron Seeley.
Good regular season pitcher.
Go Cougs.
And when he comes to the playoffs, it just disappears.
Yeah.
All right. The third one was Jamie Moyer versus Logan Gilbert. And I got Jamie Moyer.
So, from a personal standpoint, I've never liked Jamie Moyer as a person at all. But the dude was as smart and as crafty and as well studied. But look, Logan Gilbert.
I love Logan.
I mean, that guy has put in so much effort on every aspect of his game, and he's only going to get better and better. I'm taking Logan Gilbert.
Listen, man. Logan has gone leaps and strides from his rookie season to now. He's gotten away from just throwing his fastball. As a matter of fact, his MPH is a little lower, and his split is phenomenal. That dude has turned into a complete pitcher, and now his ascension to ace is like that arc is happening.
And he's got like 6 pitches, and all of them are good, right? I mean, he can pitch, he can throw them all. Yeah.
The one thing we just haven't seen is Logan Gilbert in the playoffs yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Jamie Moyer a one-pitch pitcher was able to dominate the league with that changeup.
Yeah, no, there's no denying his ability. That's the closest race that we've had so far, in my opinion.
All right. The next one was Bryce Miller versus Paul Abbott, and I got Bryce Miller. Paul
Miller's got
solid, man. He was solid, but Bryce has got the stuff, man.
Yeah. Bryce does have the stuff. He's young. I don't know why I'm hesitating. I'll take Miller.
But Paul Abbott pitched and performed well in pretty big games for the Mariners in 2000, 2001.
He did. Yes, he did.
Yeah, for a dude that was found off the independent.
He was nobody. He was out playing catch with you and me, right?
That's exactly right. All right. The last one is Brian Wu versus John Halama.
I
got Wu.
You got Wu. Yeah. Wu's got the talent. He's got some records on his side. He could be an ace in his future if he can stay healthy. Halama just had something, and I don't even know exactly what it was. He was just really, really solid.
Like my problem with Halama was when he was on, he was phenomenal. Like in 2001, he was on.
Yeah.
Okay. But we saw what happened in 2002, and by 2003, he was out of it.
Yeah. He was a hot burning ball of flame that went out quickly.
I remember he pitched the first perfect game in the Pacific Coast League for like the first time in 75 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Good memory.
Yeah. All right. So in the bullpen, Kaz Sasaki versus Munoz.
Oh, come on. Why do you gotta go? Oh man, yeah, I got Kaz too.
Yeah.
Munoz, listen. Munoz isn't a closer yet, in my opinion. He doesn't have the mentality yet. He's got the stuff. Exactly right. He doesn't have the mentality yet.
He's best suited, and now that we got Santos back, he's best suited for that eighth inning.
Yeah.
100%. All right. Arthur Rhodes versus Trent Thornton.
Oh, Rhodes. Come on, man. Anybody that's wearing these diamond earrings that flashes in a guy's face at the plate and gets a guy mad. I think it was James Lofton or somebody that got mad at Rhodes for his diamond earrings being too bright. James Lofton, wide receiver for the Packers and the Raiders. My bad. Kenny Lofton. I love that guy, Rhodes.
All right. Nelly versus Austin Both.
Well, it's Nelly, and it's Nelly only because he came out for my birthday party about 15 years ago, and we had a great time. We had an awesome time. Yeah,
he seems like he's a cool guy.
He's a great guy.
All right, Gabe Spire versus Norm Charlton.
The sheriff. You taking Spire? Yeah, I don't blame you, but and he we'll see how he should come back. I think in the next couple weeks, possibly. But I'm taking the sheriff.
Norm Charlton, 1988 through 1996.
With the Reds.
There's no competition, right? But in 2001, he was literally primarily the left-handed specialist. He wasn't that go-to guy in that bullpen, but he still for his last year, he was phenomenal.
He was intimidating, man. That's for sure.
And by the way, when he made the 2001 team in his first outing, the Mariners Stadium music people played "Back in the Saddle Again" by Aerosmith.
Oh,
you remember that?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
All right. Ryan Stanek versus Jose Paniagua.
Stanek. Yeah.
Tyler Saucedo versus Ryan Franklin.
Sauce. Give me sauce. By the way, Ryan Franklin might have been the best all-around athlete on that team, and it wasn't even close. Ryan Franklin was such an – people don't realize this about Ryan Franklin because he never really showcased any of his other athletic ability. The dude could 360 dunk. The dude could do just about anything. He was an amazing athlete.
Dude, Ryan Franklin, and he was another guy that was picked up from indie ball.
Yeah.
In 2001, and then he actually ended up having a pretty solid career.
He did. He had a nice career.
He went to St. Louis and was phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right. So behind the plate, Dan Wilson versus the Big Dumper.
Come on, man. I gotta go with Dan, but as far as any player that's been introduced to this team in the last 15 years, I am over the moon for Big Dumper because we have had a catcher problem. You've had Dave Valley, you've had Wilson, Dan the Man Wilson, and you've had Kenji Jojima.
And you forget, like in the 80s, the Mariners had a catching problem until they got to Scott Bradley, Dave Valley.
Yeah.
And then they got Dan Wilson.
Yeah.
And then from that point, when Dan Wilson retired, it was Kenji Jojima for a brief period of time. And nothing. They haven't been able to hit until Colorado.
And they haven't been able to not only hit, they haven't been able to catch, they haven't been able to manage a pitching staff, and they haven't been able to throw guys out. So I love the Big Dumper for what he's able to do, but you can't. I mean, Dan the Man. That's all you need to say.
The question to me is, what do you value? Because defensively, the way they handle a pitching staff is equal.
Yeah. No, I value the defensive side of catcher much more than I do the offensive side because and if you don't, then you hate Dave Valley and you're really not a big fan of Dan Wilson because Dan Wilson only had really one, maybe two decent years at the plate, one of which he was an all-star.
But what's crazy is like he was a career 260 hitter, a 320 OBP.
Yeah, I guess that's
right. He wasn't like he didn't have the slugging, he didn't have the OPS. But you knew he was going to be behind the plate every single day.
Every day.
Every pitcher loved pitching to him.
Yep.
Right? Same thing with Cal Raleigh. The only thing that Cal Raleigh does is crush baseball. So do you prefer the power or do you prefer the consistency? I prefer the consistency. Dan Wilson.
Yeah, I prefer – well, I mean, I'm going with Dan regardless, but I prefer clutch and power. And I think those are two things that Big Dumper is, clutch and power. But you're not going to get me off Dan Wilson. It's just not going to happen.
John Olerud versus Ty France.
Olerud.
Now, if this was Ty France 2021, 2022, I'm still taking John Olerud.
Yeah, John Olerud. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. What he brought to the locker room, and I was in that locker room a lot, was just this calmness, this, because you had some wild boys in there, you had some high strung guys, a lot of different personalities, and John Olerud was just like.
I wonder what it would have been like in 2000 when John Olerud was looking across the clubhouse at A-Rod. All right. That's funny.
Yeah.
Any insight on that, by the way?
Not really, no.
Brett Boone versus Jorge Polanco.
Boone, even though he was juiced, in my opinion.
Well, I've
allegedly.
I've talked to Brett a few times, and he'll talk about anything. I'm not going to say he danced around the question.
Yeah, and he was kind of a cocky asshole in the locker room. But Andy was an embarrassment in the home run derby when he didn't hit one out, right? I mean, so there was a lot of things I did not like about Brett Boone at the time, but he could play. I'll
say this: that when you look at his 2000 going in, he went from Atlanta to San Diego and he was hurt. What do steroids do? They help you recover very quickly from injuries.
Yeah.
They also help you build power, but they extensively help you recover quickly from injuries. I would agree with you.
Listen, there were several guys on that team that I think were juicing that people don't even 100%. Suspect, and I don't necessarily 100%. Want to get into it, but that was the times, 100%. Man. I can't kill anybody for that.
By the way, we'll talk off here, but I think I know what players you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. David Bell versus Josh Rojas.
Bell.
He was the underrated one, wasn't he?
He was, and he had some pop. He had a great pedigree, coming from a long line of baseball players like the Boones.
Well, when you got him, he was the second baseman.
Yeah, he could,
and he made the switch.
He made the switch. I got to go with Bell.
I like what Josh Rojas brings.
I do too.
But you know what, though? He's still too early. It's still too early in this Mariners development.
He can play, though. He can play in the field. He's got some range.
All right, shortstop. J.P. Crawford versus Carlos Guillen.
JP. Carlos
I'm
Guillen would have these monster games, and then he would just be trash other games.
Yeah. I like the one knock about Carlos Guillen, according to Lou Piniella, was that he was not an everyday player.
Right.
And when they lost A-Rod, it was almost like crap. We have to deal with Carlos Guillen, right?
Yeah, Carlos Guillen, I think his mind would wander, right? Like he wasn't focused all the time to be an everyday player.
Right, and what's crazy is then he leaves Seattle, goes to Detroit, and becomes an all-star, right?
Yeah.
But J.P. Crawford is steady. He's consistent. And
he's a leader.
He's a leader, and because of last year, you know what the high ceiling for JP is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Luke Raley versus Al Martin.
Luke Raley.
I'm taking Luke Raley.
You ever hear the story that Al Martin said that he played football at USC and it was like a big lie or something? I wasn't there firsthand to know if that's true, but I've heard that story many times.
Yeah. Oh, and I still haven't forgiven Al Martin for Game 4 of the 2000.
Right? No, me either.
Right. I was at that game, and I was about to watch Roger Clemens throw a perfect game. And then Al Martin with the double down the right field line.
I know.
And I was so pissed. All right, center field. Julio Rodriguez or Mike Cameron?
Cameron. And Julio's probably my favorite second player now. The reason I chose Cameron is the dude had a ton of pop. He came in under these unbelievable circumstances where you're replacing the greatest player that not only played in the history of this franchise, but one of the greatest players in the last 10 years in all of Major League Baseball, and you did it. You lived up to it. You did it. You saved balls going over the wall multiple times. You had a 5 home run game. You had multiple 3 home run games. I mean, the dude did it.
Yeah, listen, it was unbelievable pressure for him to come in because, as you mentioned, Ken Griffey Jr. probably was one of the best baseball players of the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And he was a legend. He was an icon in Seattle. And now all of a sudden you got to step in that shadow and you become an all-star.
Now, is Julio a better player and more skilled and can do more things? Yes. He's a base stealer, which puts pressure on the pitcher. He's probably faster by quite a bit. And in the long run, he might end up being a far better player. But
100%.
The inconsistencies right now lead me to choose Cameron.
Right, because we've seen Julio have a 30 home run season. We've seen it twice. We've seen the All-Star games. But the problem that we haven't seen is a complete season from Julio Rodriguez.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing that we've seen from Mike Cameron in his 4 years in Seattle, from start to finish, that dude was phenomenal.
Yeah, he really was, man.
Yep. I got to go with Cammy as well, too. I know this is going to sound funny, but Ichiro Suzuki versus Mitch Haniger or Dom Canzone or whoever the fuck is playing that field.
Yeah. And I will never subscribe to the view that the people have that said Ichiro was a selfish player and he wouldn't do this and he would do. Dude, Ichiro is one of the greatest players in the history of baseball. He's one of the greatest players in the history of the franchise. Period. End of story.
He is the most unappreciated Hall of Famer.
He really is.
Because what's funny about it is because Ichiro, I didn't care if Ichiro hit home runs or not. Ichiro just got on base.
Yeah.
He had a cannon for a right arm. He was a great defender.
A great defender. Speed out the yin yang. I mean, now were there times where he maybe wouldn't bunt when he should have? Okay, fine. But baseball's a selfish sport anyway.
Yeah. But I'll just say this: next to Ricky Henderson, Ichiro Suzuki was the greatest leadoff hitter next to him over the course of the last 50 years? Name me somebody that comes close. Nope, you can't tell me Kenny Lofton or Devon White or Marquise Grissom. Good leadoff.
No, I mean Kenny Lofton. Maybe you could try to enter the conversation, but between Henderson and Ichiro, no, I can't. I mean, I'd have to go back to the early '80s and '70s. I mean, where did Rod Carew bat?
Ooh, that's a good one, Rod Carew.
I don't know if he was a leadoff guy or not. I can't remember, but I mean,
I'd have to go back and look.
It's
you're talking about like the top of the top.
Yeah. Yep.
So all right. So Edgar Martinez versus.
Yeah. No, you don't even need to say the next name. Yeah. You don't even need to say it. Yeah. Edgar.
Yeah.
Like by the way, back to Ichiro really quick. So I've been to almost all the Mariner Hall of Fame inductions at Safeco Field, and Felix probably is under Junior when it comes to the ovation, but Felix's ovation was unbelievable, and Ichiro's ovation was unbelievable. So I think a lot of people finally came around and said, okay, you know what? This dude's just glad that he's a Mariner, and he's retired a Mariner, and he's with the organization in the, behind the scenes. So I think he's more loved now than he was shortly after his retirement.
Here's how you know that you were loved by your teammates. When you have that Hall of Fame induction, Team Hall of Fame induction, look who shows up.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Everyone showed up.
Everyone.
But here's the funny thing. You know how good of a hitter Edgar Martinez was? When pitchers like Pedro Martinez and Mariano Rivera publicly say that Edgar Martinez was the hardest to abate, and they rarely got him out.
Yep. I mean, I would put, I think Tony Gwynn is one of the greatest hitters ever in the history of baseball. And there's some unbelievable stats and numbers on how many times he didn't strike out. Like Smoltz, Glavine, and what's his name, struck out 3,000 people. And they only struck out Tony Gwynn twice between them all after facing him 300 times. Something ridiculous like that. That's not the exact stat, but you get the picture. So, and I would put Edgar kind of just an eyelash under Tony Gwynn as far as that kind of ability.
You're talking about some of the best hitters over the course of the last 50 years, and Junior, Bonds, of course, A-Rod, of course,
Ortiz, guys like that.
But we're talking about pure hitters.
Yeah.
Ted Williams, Rogers Hornsby, Ty Cobb, Edgar Martinez.
Yeah. Yep.
He's in that aspect. And by the way, oh, do I have an echo?
No, you didn't.
Okay. When you're talking about 1995, all the way to 2000, Junior, Edgar, A-Rod, Randy Johnson. 4 first ballot Hall of Famers playing on the same team in their prime. 0 World Series appearances.
And you know what also pisses me off? Is that Randy Johnson? Oh, it's going to bug me till I'm in my grave. But Randy Johnson went on to have a better career in Arizona than he did in Seattle. And that really bothers me, too. It's he had back issues here, and the Mariners maybe thought he was done. And I don't know that I can fault them for that. But come on, man. Come on.
I heard that the reason why Woody Woodward and some of the guys in the front office didn't want to carry on with Randy was because they thought that he was going to hit the market and ask to be the highest paid pitcher. And I remember seeing a report or a quote from Randy Johnson after the fact that he said he felt disrespected because if they would have just offered, he probably would have stayed.
Yeah.
They didn't even offer.
No, I know. That's and I bet their side of the excuse was, well, we didn't want to insult him with the offer that we were going to give him, so we thought we'd just let him go do his thing. I could just hear that coming up. By the way, quick Randy Johnson story. So back in 1993, Guns N' Roses played in the Kingdome, and my best friend at the time from junior high and high school went to Arizona and was roommates with Axl Rose's wife's brother.
Oh, okay.
So we got these all-inclusive passes sent to us to go anywhere, backstage, the party room, the green room, anywhere we wanted to in the entire kingdom. And we took full advantage of that, by the way. And I got a million stories from that night. But the one story was I was backstage, behind the stage, in the corner, and there was this huge cooler of beers. And there's Randy Johnson standing next to the cooler, reaches down with his long arm, pulls out a beer, and I go over there and I pull out a beer. Cheers with Randy Johnson. We can't hear, it's so loud.
Right.
We just crack our beer and pound our beer. He had no idea who I was. I obviously knew who he was, and it was awesome. I'm at Guns N' Roses standing next to Randy Johnson drinking a beer.
By the way, how did Guns N' Roses perform that night?
They were phenomenal. This was '93, so they were in like the height of their. I mean, they were it. It was amazing, and there was a bunch of other awesome bands, like hardcore bands. But I was too busy dicking around doing all kinds of weird other stuff I could tell you about later on to really pay attention. But it was fun.
I think I might have fanned out if I was having beers with Randy Johnson.
Yeah, well, you would think so, but it's so loud, you can't have a conversation. So there's not really much you can do, but just cheers and just sit there and bask in the glory of it.
We got some quotes in the comment section. This is from Rooftop Sports, who says Chuck Armstrong was a prick to Randy Johnson, and Randy would have went off in safe go. Duh.
Yeah. Yes, he would have. Safe go field, Randy Johnson. Oh, my God.
Like, if you're talking about the greatest pitchers of the last 50 years, it starts and ends with Pedro Martinez and Randy Johnson.
Dude, he went to Arizona where the air is much lighter and still dominated.
Oh, dude. That 2001 World Series. Oh, and what's funny is I know we're about to come to the end of the show here, but I was talking to somebody who said that if we got past the Yankees in 2001, we would have won the World Series. And I was like, do you realize what was waiting on the other side? Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling. No, we wouldn't have.
It would have been, boy, it would have been fun to watch, though, man.
Oh, for sure. Before we go, I got to ask you this question. Will Seattle ever forgive A-Rod? Like, if the Mariners reached out to bury the hatchet, bring him back for an A-Rod night, do you think Seattle fans still in 2024 boo the shit out of him?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They do. And listen, I've had many conversations with A-Rod back when I was covering the team, and I would be in the visiting team locker room, both when he was with the Yankees and Texas. Yeah. And one of the big knocks on A-Rod socially is that he's fake, but he never treated me with anything other than respect and kindness and his time and his attention. And if he was being fake doing that, I don't give a shit, because it made me feel good. And I was a nobody. And I'm not talking about the gangbang, the media gangbangs where I might throw a question. I'm talking about one-on-one, just him and I, him in his suit after a game. And he's gone on to do some great things with Shark Tank and some other business stuff. And he's a great, great, great analyst on Fox. So there's a lot of reasons to like the guy, but I think that this city was so hurt by the comments that he said, I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I could win, when he knew that was bullshit, because he was taking all the money. And that bullpen in Texas was the worst bullpen in the last 50 years in all of baseball, and there was no way they were going to win shit. If he would have just said, listen, they offered me so much money I couldn't refuse. I'm sorry, Seattle, I love you, but I got to do this because of the money. I think things would have been completely different.
Right. The funny thing is, because he said that the biggest priority for him was to be with a winning baseball team. And I had read at the time that it had come down between the New York Mets, who were in the World Series in 2000, and the Seattle Mariners, who just came off an ALCS run, right, who had the window open. And I heard rumors that there was another team in the mix. And I said to myself, if winning is truly, because I thought the money was always going to be there regardless. If winning is a priority, it'll be Seattle and New York. And he specifically said that winning was the only thing he wanted.
Yeah.
And
Listen,
then when the news came down, that he signed, and I'm with you. I do not care about the money. Like, if a player, get your money. If you desire to be the highest paid player in baseball, have at it. I'm happy for you. But in a context where a fan base that embraced you, after Junior left, you were the guy. And then you lied.
Yeah. I can argue that Alex Rodriguez has had the most polarizing career in the history of baseball.
Yep. He wanted to be loved, and he went to New York. You know what I mean? Like,
there are so many facets of his career that are intriguing and shocking and mesmerizing.
I will say this about A-Rod, and I will say this to the day I die. And mind you, Ken Griffey Jr. was my boyhood hero, and I love Junior, even today. And when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame with the tears coming down his face, I was crying too.
Yeah.
A-Rod was the greatest draft pick in the history of this franchise. All-around athlete. Was probably the greatest athlete the Mariners have ever drafted.
Yeah, I mean, hard to argue that one for sure.
I mean, all right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Brian Apter for hanging out today.
I loved it, man. Always have fun with you, Steve. It's good times.
Any parting words?
No, I really like talking baseball with you, and hopefully we can do some more.
Yeah, we'll probably shoot for next week, my man.
Cool, love it.
All right. I want to thank everybody, and until next week, go Mariners.
Go M's.